Hi, and welcome to Gamedev Meetup 97. Today we have a special guest here, Laila Berzins, or Latvian would be Berzins. And she's a voice actor from LA, and we will talk about her surname a bit later, but let's now start with her demo reel. So please.
Vic's a depraved child, and Val's a brain without a spine. The years my father wasted grooming them for glory when I was right there.
I deal in death. If you cannot bring yourself to kill, speak my name.
I understand, young Zagreus, that you would seek to leave that bitter darkness for this bitter cold. Quite honestly, I fail to see why.
What? How dare! Get out of here! Get out or I shall make you! Out with you!
We are the last survivors of a proud tribe. The uncorrupted. The unbroken. The Magha!
You're embarrassing me! Boys hate scrawny little bugs. They want a woman with meat on her bones. And I got all the meat.
I don't remember any of it. How could a queen allow such madness? Even if I was being controlled, the idea that I would try to sacrifice my own daughter is terrifying. I am thoroughly ashamed.
They all bumble in, dreaming of crimes. Every day they show up. It's a waste of my time. But the strings of light you folded and bent prove you've got brains, to some extent.
Sometimes I dream about getting off this station, seeing the universe, seeing Earth even. Riley, I need you to answer me. Do you trust me?
Unlock the door. Now.
I'm just scared about what happens if you leave and I'm stuck here alone again. Riley.
Don't be afraid to look. Does my tail make me look fat? All right already. Attack them! Yes!
I'm ready to rumble! Wrestling is all fun and games until you get your butt kicked by me. I am happy to demonstrate what hit like a girl really means. Hello? 911? Yeah, I'd like to report a robbery. Looks like Tara stole the show! Booyah!
Tragic how short you'll live to profit from my example.
Your time is at an end. Another croissant coming right up!
It won't be long now!
Bronzed and buttery!
What?
Oh! This is just the job for me! It's cold as cocytus! It's getting hot! I'm the hottest there is, the hottest there was, and the hottest there ever will be! Ooh, yeah! What you gonna do, brother, when Vixen Mania runs wild on you? Woo! And if you can't smell what the Vixen's brewing, your butt better call somebody!
I hope they don't hear me. Do they hear me, Janis? Yeah.
Could you be a voice actor?
Yeah.
Maybe.
So,
At this
hi,
video?
Laila, and I'm happy to have you here in Gamedev Meetup. And yeah, so how we found out about you? So we were watching. We have these indie game compilation videos on YouTube, and we are regularly watching them to see what's going on in the games business. And then somehow we are like having them in the background usually and working on our stuff, and then we just had a quick look on the subtitle on the final titles of one video, and there was Laila Berzins, and me and my wife were like, whoa, it sounds really Latvian. Let's contact her and ask if she's actually Latvian. And it turned out that you have some roots in Latvia, and maybe you can tell more about that. How Latvian are you? So your microphone is off. Yeah.
Oops, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my father is Latvian, Juris Berzins, and middle name Imants, very cool. So pretty much he grew up in Riga, Latvia. He was about 8 years old when the Russians started bombing. He had to leave, stay in displaced persons camps in parts of Germany, and eventually he and his parents, they found a sponsor in Worcester, Massachusetts. So they moved and started a new life, and he became a professor of graduate studies and a psychologist. And that's kind of the whole background on that. And in my I grew up kind of I learned Ayajuju from my grandmother. We just called her Mamanya, not Vets Mamanya, just Mamanya. A couple phrases, a bunch of the different foods, a few Latvian Christmas carols. So and we celebrated names days. So that's the extent. I wish I was fluent, but I love I love asking my dad questions. Or what did I say? To my dad. I wanted to ask him about his rokas because he hurt his hands. But I know Kauklajas and Sveki, es milu tevi, and milu, a whole bunch of little things, little bits and pieces from my childhood still come out. But that's the extent.
Yeah, and yeah, that was the one thing that we were curious. Like we see your name there, and then we were thinking like, how does her English sound? Is she really fluent? And then it turned out that you are a native speaker, and that was a bit weird seeing Latvian name and so good in English. And do you think that knowing another, like some parts of another language, does that help for voice acting, or what do you think?
Sure. I mean, I grew up singing in professional choruses, and I learned how to sing in Latin, Spanish, German, French, Italian, Chinese at one point when I was singing in China with a traveling chorus. So it definitely comes in handy because, for example, in Genshin Impact, where I play Xiao, there's several words that are, rooted in Mandarin Chinese. So I was able to pronounce them more easily because I had experience singing in Chinese. Or there's been times where you'll have a character that'll say words in different languages, just they'll be sprinkled in, or, I think it's definitely important. At least I feel like I know enough in a couple different languages so I can at least break the ice. If I can sing a song to somebody in their native language, or I can say a couple words at least, I think that's definitely helpful. But I mean, in general, for people who speak, that are bilingual, especially those that speak Spanish, I mean, it's a huge market. I'm conversational Spanish, not fluent Spanish, but but language is an amazing thing.
I've heard that like even how you think and your intellect is connected to languages, because you hear sounds and some parts of your brain actually work different if you hear different languages. So maybe that what also helps for a voice acting, that you hear sounds that maybe others don't.
Yep. Well, we're definitely audiophiles. We're listening to, the way a voice actor's listening to a commercial or no different. I'll be listening to a meditation at night and I'll have to turn it off because I hear mouth clicks or something. Like, no, I can't. But we're listening with a fine-tooth comb in a different way. I'd be like, oh, so that's what they went for on that. I auditioned for that. Oh, they went in a totally different direction. It's cool to see.
Yeah, and how? What do you think? How do you become a good voice actor? Is it talent only? Is it like your physique, or is there some hard work also involved in this?
Oh, tons of hard work. I mean, you're basically starting a small business from scratch. You're your own director, accountant, engineer, social media manager. Um, you know, you're marketing yourself on your own. I work with coaches regularly, and I probably do about 40 to 60 auditions a week. I have about six main agents that I work with. And so I'm sending things off from home all the time, and I grew up with a background in stage acting and musical theater, which I think helped me a great deal. But it's definitely, you have to be you have to be a great actor, because you can have the best voice in the world, but if you can't, for example, communicate in a conversational way as if speaking to a friend about a product, it is not going to help you. Or if you can't, if you get into a callback for a character for a cartoon or video game, and then they say, actually, we'd like to hear something totally different, or what else you got? You have any accents, dialects? Can you make her younger, older? So there's that part of it. There are some people that are in genres where they just do one thing. That maybe there's people that just do audiobooks, or they just do corporate narrations or e-learning. For me, I try to spread a wide net. So I work in cartoons, video games, commercials, narrations, e-learning, anime and dubbing, looping, or creature voices. So obviously, the more you can do in different genres, the more work is available. But it's definitely, you want to be a great actor. You want to know how to improv, because I can tell you so many times, improv in cartoons, in commercials, makes, in especially in auditions, if a casting director is hearing the same thing over and over and over again, and you just put a little spin on it, you do something different, then they're like, oh, okay. It's all about standing out, and it's also about learning how to be comfortable in your own skin and not being a perfectionist, which is really hard for, when you're starting out, because you do get, in the beginning, you're way too focused on how you sound versus on what you're saying and how you're communicating. And that's the biggest thing is, when you're doing real cinematic acting, which is in a lot of video games, you're in that moment. You're really there. It's not, kind of going through the motions of it. You're really in that moment. So it's allowing yourself to explore different parts of your own psyche and emotions, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and trying new things, getting out of your comfort zone. And there is an element of fearlessness, because you also have to be behind a booth with a bunch of people staring at you, except during the pandemic, where we're all just staring at ourselves.
Yeah. So tell me more. How does it work? Like starting, how does this business work? Starting from, so they find you, they write some email, then they send you the script, or do you meet and then they tell you? How does it work?
So I worked to get all my agents by sending emails, like cover letter emails with my demos, my major clients, basically showing them, this is why you should work with me, because I bring these clients to the table. I bring this experience to the table. And
what do you mean by clients?
So, like, for example, I would write a cover letter that say I'm a full-time LA-based voice actor with a home broadcast quality home studio, over 12 years experience. Clients include Disney, Nickelodeon, Warner Brothers, Google, CBS.
So just like your portfolio.
They're like, oh, and then once I, that happened over the course of many years, both national agencies. I have an LA, New York agency, and then lots of regional ones like Chicago, Texas, Oregon. So then once when you have what'll happen is the agents will email you auditions throughout the day. So you'll just be getting them all day long, and there'll be different deadlines. And so I'm just sending them out from my home studio. I'll get the breakdown, whether it's commercial, narration, cartoon, game, whatever it is. It'll say, we want 2 takes on 1 MP3. We want it to sound this way. This is the direction from the client. And then I just keep sending them, like my job, 80% of my job is just auditioning. So I'm just sending a lot of auditions throughout the day. Like I said, probably on a given month, I'm sending over 200, you know, because I have a lot of agents now. And then I also have been on casting websites like Voice123, where you can pay a membership fee and audition for clients directly that way. And I've gotten some clients that way. So that's pretty much, you know, I work from my home studio, sending everything in. And then when I get hired for roles, I'm either doing them, I mean, for the past year and a half, it's only been from my home studio, but normally about 80% would be home studio and 20% would be at studios around the area that would call me in, and we would record in person.
Yeah, and tell us more about games. So how are games different from movies and cartoons? Is there any difference, or like it's the same?
I think that, well, games have changed so much from when I was growing up with a little 2D. So, you know, it's so almost every game now, all the big productions are like being in a movie. So the acting is very much the same kind of movie, you know, cinematic, everything more intimate. There's certainly games that are very intense, like, you know, I've done World of Warcraft and things like that, where I'm playing orcs, and God of War, where I'm playing a Valkyrie, and those are much more intense, but they're still, you know, visually more like a movie. The difference is, I think that when you're recording for a movie, you maybe record at the studio once or twice and everything gets done. For video games, you could be recording a 2 to 4 hour session one time, or you could be recording multiple sessions over the course of several months. It depends on the role. So it really depends, but that's kind of it. And then there's some games that are completely narrative based, where you're just speaking and you'll choose, it's like choose your own adventure. Depending on what you say, it'll go down a different path, versus the very action adventure games where I'm just in the booth, you know, doing all the efforts and movements as I'm, you know, I'm throwing the fireball, I'm punching, I'm, you know, so all the movements and the efforts, we're using our upper body, not our lower body, but I am moving quite a bit, because if you want the right sound to come out, you have to actually do that with your body. If you just stand with your arms together, nothing's going to really come out the way it needs to be. So, but their video games sessions are workouts. I have a session tonight that's going to be all efforts, no dialogue, just efforts, lifting and getting hit and all those things. There's like 95 of them, so you better believe I'm going to sleep like a baby.
that was my next question. So how is it? Like, I saw in your demo reel that there is lots of cinematics, but how much of that have you also done, like in-game sounds? I saw Last of Us, the zombie sound. Did you also voice the in-game sound of the zombie, or only the cinematic?
So there are several scenes in The Last of Us where the zombie sounds. So actually, for The Last of Us, The Last of Us 2, we were in a studio on a little lav mic connected to our the top of our head. And they had a screen, and we would follow the movements. We would watch the zombie move in a specific way on the screen, and then we would do like 3 takes following that action. Like, so basically doing it to picture. And that would be used directly in the game. So it's not just, you know, in the trailers, those sounds you'll hear throughout the game, and any creature sounds that I do will be, you know, State of Decay 2, that's the zombie sounds, or so that's
and I saw like every game that you have done is totally different voice. How do you do that? How is that? Like, I saw that you like zombies and even boys, and when I heard the boy's voice, I was like, really? Is that your voice? How is it? How do you do that?
It's a lot of it is vocal placement. So when I'm doing a boy voice, I am lowering my pitch, and I'm also usually adding a little rasp. And then depending on if I want to go higher, I go up higher into the nasal cavities. If I feel like a younger boy maybe, and he's like not really sure of himself, or like, hey, like I'm like a teenage boy and I don't really care. What's up, Brittany? I like your scrunchie.
Or like when I'm doing old ladies, I'm kind of constricting the back of my voice and I'm more doddering.
And facial expression also makes a big difference. When I'm doing an orc or something like that, everything is marionette mouth, strength and honor. So it's a lot of it's about where is my voice placed in my in the is it coming from, is it head voice, is it a throaty raspy character, is it maybe it's a nasal character and everything's coming out like this, so, and then of course there's accents and dialects, which changes you up completely, depending on the boy, everything is so you can just, the more I've kind of always been a human television set growing up. Like I'd watch a show and I'd be like, oh, I want to try that voice out. And I'd play around with it since I was little, mimicking things. And then as I trained with other coaches, I learned, okay, there are specific ways that you can actually get into those characters. For creatures, it's kind of hard to explain how I do those, but it's, it's a lot of closing your eyes and using your imagination. And
there's a question in our YouTube stream. Does it sometimes work the opposite way? Like your voice actually changes the character in game?
Yes. There have been there are a lot of times where I'm just hired based on my natural speaking voice, because they're like, we want a badass, husky, aggro, Viking or something like that. And that's where I naturally rest. Sometimes I don't know if the voice will change the character, but I know that if they have a picture of the character, the casting directors have a picture of what the character looks like 9 times out of 10, unless the artwork's not done yet. And they're just listening, looking at the picture a lot of the time. And when they hear the voice that fits with the picture, that's usually where they go. Sometimes they'll hear something completely different and be like, oh, I didn't think of that.
He's a real dorky character, and he's just like, everything is really exciting, and what if he's like this?
So definitely there are moments where, we'll be playing around in the booth, or especially in cartoons where I'll be doing a main character, and then they'll have you for at least 3 other possible roles. Like they have you for up to 4 characters during a session. So they'll be like, we want you to be this background frog. We need you to be this kid over here. And so a lot of times that's how it comes out. But sometimes in casting, you'll just read for something and then you'll do a second take. And the second take will be a complete 180 from what they were thinking. But they'll be like, oh, I like that as another option, So
and the process probably, it does not take one day to do a voiceover for a game, right? It probably takes a lot longer than that.
It depends on the game. There are a lot of games where you can get you can get quite a bit done, or the majority done in 2 to 4 hours. The maximum time I do for. Now
how do you stay consistent for these 4 hours? Like you start at 1 p.m. and how do you know that at 5 p.m. you don't sound totally different?
So the director will have audio references. Like if I've been doing a project with Warner Brothers for the past couple of months, and they'll have a reference. I have a couple characters I'm doing for them. So they'll play the reference at the beginning of the session, and the director will be listening very carefully throughout the recording. And if he hears, and maybe he or she is like, that sounds a little off. Can we play the reference again? So, but part of voiceover is being able to sustain a character voice for 4 hours. So, but there are times where, I was hired for something and, I was just tired and I had an off day and I was recording from home. And I realized I recorded a different kind of old lady than I did for the first time. And I had to go back, that does happen. But having I keep reference files for everything I do on a hard drive, so that if they say, hey, you booked that thing you auditioned for 2 months ago, I can pull it up and say, oh, that's what I sounded like. And they'll do that too. But for before every session, they'll play the reference file, and then you'll usually repeat back about 3 or 4 sentences, that you hear. Like, so you'll just call in response.
Yeah, because my experience was we got a voiceover for our game awards, and we asked to do 2 additional sentences in the voice actor's natural voice, and it was not the cheapest voiceover on Fiverr. We didn't take the cheapest, and after like 1 or 2 days, her natural voice sounded different. Not even like a voice acting voice, but natural. So that's why I asked, like, how do you stay consistent with a artificial voice? Like, so how often, like before the pandemic, how often did you go to actual game studios to do the voiceover there?
I would say maybe a few times a month.
What were, like, you told this one technology with some sensors and doing the repeating what is on the screen. Are there any other technologies used in voiceover?
Oh yeah, I mean there was a video game I was involved in that had it was like a binaural microphone that looked like 2 ears. And I would just talk and I was like the spirit that was whispering in one side of the ear and then whispering in the other. That was one of the coolest things I got to do. Primarily, you're recording in the booth on the microphone. There are people that do performance capture and motion capture where they're completely off book. It's like being in a play. They're mic'd up. They've got patches all over themselves that monitor their movements. There's a lot of video games, including Wasteland, where I did the voice of oh my god, my brain just lost it. I forgot. It'll come back to me. The main character, the villain on Wasteland. Wow, this is my brain in the morning, folks. Well, I did the voice of the villain, Liberty Buchanan on Wasteland, and there was a separate actor who was doing all the performance capture. So she was doing all the movements and everything like that. She would be listening to my to what I was saying, and she would be acting it out. There are other actors that do the whole thing. They're recording and they're doing the movements. So there's both motion capture, which is full body, everything from creatures and things like that, to martial arts, to performance capture or facial capture, where you're just rigged up to a machine and they're just capturing all of your facial movements. You've got little dots all over your face. Primarily, I've just done on mic. I think eventually I'd do something with just facial capture, just because I'd love to. I've done workshops for that, but it's super fun.
I know that we are running out of your time, so let's do the last question. And so it's already 34 past.
Time flies.
It's a shame, but let's do the last question, and then maybe let's catch up in some other event. So have you done any work with indie studios, and if so, then what's the difference between indies and AAA?
Yeah, definitely done a lot of indie games. Worked with clients overseas. There's been clients in Sweden and Germany and things like that. I think the main difference, I mean, other than budget, is there's usually a lot of times I'll be just recording from home. They'll trust me to just record the lines. If it's a client I've worked with for a long time, they'll just be like, here are the scripts, just do 3 takes in a row of each line, and then send it to us. That's always nice when I have that option. There's not a lot of times I don't have a director. And then there's been projects where I've got a director and an engineer, and we're working for for several months, and it's still and it's a you know, a larger budget, so it really varies. But in terms of the actual session itself, it's still very similar. You know, it just depends. Is it more of a narrative game? Is it more of an adventure game? Is it a dramatic piece? So, but that's really been only you know, the main difference is the budget and the option more times for self-direction.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Without anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Thank you. Thanks for being here, and I'm really happy that we finally we are talking like for months, and finally.
I know.
Yeah. And thanks for being here, and probably let's see you in somewhere, maybe some other game dev meetup. Maybe we'll have lots of questions, and maybe if you can maybe join in some other event. But yeah, thank you for now, and probably we will stay here and talk to others, and then yeah, bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Take good care.
Yeah.
Bye.
So for the others, probably we'll finish here, because I don't think we can speak on behalf of voice acting. I don't know what others think. We are only 4 here. Yeah, probably then we will end here, and I have a big announcement to make. We are having the Game Dev Meetup 98 on site in the Unicorn Cafe, but it will not be a green screen background anymore, but it will be the real deal. So we will have the instructions on the vaccines and everything that has to be prepared before attending the Game Dev Meetup on Game Dev LV. So follow the news there, and see you on site. The amount of people that will be able to come will be limited, so follow the news and click the RSVP button on meetup.com, and yeah, see you in the Game Dev Meetup 98. Thanks everybody for attending the meetup, and bye.